Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast. I am your host, Mark Henry Jr., and you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _, and you can follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod. We are in the midst of my best ever month of gambling here on the Tough Cover Podcast. In the NFL, I am 19-16, up 19 units. In the NCAA, I am 12-14, up 1 unit. In the MLB, I'm 26-8, up 58 units. And I am overall 57-38, up 78 units. So this is by far the best month on the Tough Cover Podcast. So if you're watching this later, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. I know we are a bit later than usual today. We're going to get back to normal, doing a 8 a.m. type show tomorrow for the NFL. So you guys have some time before the 1 o'clock games. So running a little late, but I have 9 picks on the noon slate in 3 games for college football. I have a night pick, I've got a parlay, and I've got 2 MLB picks for you. So let's get it started with, there's only one way for me to go here, and that's with my Notre Dame Fighting Irish at noon. It's the noon kickoff on Fox. It's College Game Day. Barstool's there. You're probably all watching that right now. But yeah, +7 Notre Dame. Notre Dame plus 210 on the money line. Notre Dame team total over 19.5. I'm playing the spread for 4 units. I'm playing the money line for 2 units, and I'm playing the team total over for 1 unit. Now you're going to say I'm a homer. That's fine. I don't believe in us to beat Cincinnati next week, but I believe in us to compete in this game today. I came into the year loving Wisconsin. I had them to win the Big Ten West. I had them to win the Big Ten, to go over 8.5 wins. And this game could for sure make or break that last wager. I have not been at all impressed with Wisconsin to make me confident in that wager that I placed to start this year. I know you could say the same thing about Notre Dame, especially with the Florida State game and the Toledo game, but they really, really impressed me against Purdue, especially defensively. Notre Dame's not deep. They are very weak in the secondary, and Wisconsin definitely is far deeper than Notre Dame on the roster and on the O-line especially. But I think Notre Dame has more top-notch playmakers on both sides of the ball and players who can make a play to change the game. In a tight one at the end, defensively or offensively. You have Kyle Hamilton at safety, the best player in the country, in my opinion. Kyron Williams, a running back who hasn't really gotten going last week. It seems like they got him going in the second half a bit last game. And Michael Mayer. Those 3 are enough to give me belief that Notre Dame can not only cover but win this game. A win would make Brian Kelly the winningest coach in Notre Dame history, passing Knute Rockne, and a win for Wisconsin would break a streak of 5 straight losses against ranked opponents. Now, obviously, I don't need to tell you, it's the story of the week. It's unbelievable, actually, how this has played out for both of these teams to come in ranked, and Jack Cohn Jack Cohn was thrown in the trash by Wisconsin. Wisconsin was done with Jack Cohn, and I've not been too kind to Jack Cohn, but this is a big-time revenge spot, and he's going against his former team, Wisconsin, who made him transfer due to Graham Mertz, who has not lived up to expectations at QB for the Badgers. And if you follow my Twitter, you know I don't believe wholeheartedly in Jack Cohn, but if there's ever going to be a time for him to step up, it's here in a revenge game. But if he struggles, we have seen that Notre Dame's freshman dual-threat quarterback, backup Tyler Buckner, is absolutely electric and injects life into the offense, especially with his legs. I'm going with Notre Dame team total over 19.5. It's too low, and even if Cohn struggles, we have Buckner to turn to, and those are 2 massively different offensive styles that I have a hard time believing Wisconsin will be able to shut down and contain both of. The main reason I love Notre Dame, though, is because they're great against the rush on defense at 14th in the country and not so great against the pass. Whiskey wants to run the ball. They want to win running the ball. They want to punch you in the mouth, like Barry Alvarez said on Part of My Take. This matchup scares me much less for Notre Dame than a matchup, like I said, with Cincinnati, with Desmond Ridder next week, who will pass all over the Irish. I'm just not so sure Mertz and Wisconsin will do the same. So Notre Dame +7 for 4 units, +210 for 2 units, and over 19.5 on the team total for 1 unit. So let's get to another game on the noon slate here. I like Utah State +9.5 versus Boise State for 3 units, Utah State +290 versus Boise for 2 units, and over 63.5 Utah State and Boise for 2 units. It scares me just how much I love this game, and I love Utah State here. I took them last week as a 10-point dog against Air Force on the road, and as a money line dog, they came through. So naturally, I'm in love with them here as a 9.5-point underdog at home against a team in Boise that has been unimpressive and is sitting at 1-2. And this is the worst start for the program since 2005 when they started 0-2. The main reason that I don't like Boise in this game is their leading rusher has 61 yards on the season. So while they have a great quarterback in Hank Bachmeier, Boise State is averaging 101 yards per attempt on its 98 carries so far this season. I'm not sure I buy into their defense at all, and I know they can't run the ball. I watched those Boise UCF and Boise OK State games and walked away really unimpressed with everything but quarterback, and they're away from the blue turf today, which is always bad for Boise. On the other side, new Utah State head coach Blake Anderson has shocked the Mountain West with his first month of the season with wins over Washington State as a 17-point underdog and Air Force as a 9-point underdog. Utah State uses two quarterbacks, and it's a dual threat system. I don't usually love that, but they both use and lean on the leading receiver in the country in Devin Tompkins. Let's look at this guy. I mean, take a look at some of this guy's tape if you haven't, or take a look at some of this guy's numbers if you haven't. Devin Tompkins is lighting the world on fire, 454 yards in 3 games as the leading receiver in the country. Both of these teams play a fast tempo, both throw the ball a ton, and both defenses are susceptible to giving up big plays. So I took this over at 63.5 on Monday where it opened. It has since moved to 70. I would not take it at 70, and I don't know if I've ever seen line movement like that with the spread sticking where it is, but this is a wild one. I love Utah State both ways. This is also surprisingly on CBS at noon, so you can go check it out. And now we get to a big SEC matchup at noon on ESPN. I have Mississippi State +3 versus LSU for 2 units, Mississippi State +120 versus LSU for 2 units, and LSU team total under 29.5 for 1 unit. This is very simple to me. Mississippi State is much better than LSU, and you're giving me Mississippi State as a home dog in a conference rivalry matchup. Hell yeah, I'll take Mississippi State in this matchup here. LSU is being favored here week in and week out on name brand alone. I said the same exact thing a few weeks ago when they traveled to UCLA as a road favorite and got punked. Max Johnson has not impressed me at all, and I don't believe in this offense to score on Mississippi State's solid defense, even though they put up some numbers on Central Michigan or whoever it was last week. Mississippi State got absolutely screwed against Memphis and should be 3-0 coming into this game. I've been very impressed with Will Rogers, the Mississippi State QB. I think Mississippi State should be favored by over a field goal here, probably in the 4 to 5 point range, especially since LSU is missing their best player in cornerback Derek Stingley, who will be a top 10 to 15 pick in next year's NFL draft. And against Mike Leach in the shootout offense, you do not want to be missing your top and only really good corner. So I'll take Mike Leach over Ed Orgeron all day long, personally. I'm also taking LSU team total under 29.5 because I believe in this Bulldog defense, and I don't believe in Max Johnson. LSU only scored 27 in a shootout with UCLA, who has a much worse defense than Mississippi State, and won to Memphis, and that included a bullshit 90-yard punt return touchdown that should have been called back. And Memphis is a great offense, so there's no shame in giving up 24 real points to Memphis. So I love Mississippi State, which concludes my 9 noon bets in my only 3 noon games. So let's get to my nightcap here. At 7 o'clock, I like Kentucky -4.5 at South Carolina for 2 units. Everyone's going to love South Carolina here because of how Kentucky looked last week against Chattanooga. But I think they get up for this game and bounce back even on the road as the much better team with the much better QB and the much better coach. It reminds me a lot of the Missouri game from a few weeks ago. I expect a big day out of my guy, Will Levis. Will Levis has been a stud. He had a weird game last week and has had some turnover issues, but the numbers are pretty staggering. They were playing Sandstorm and loud bird noises all week long during practice, which is what they do at South Carolina during games. So Kentucky will be as ready as they can be, I guess, for this road environment. It's pretty funny. Sandstorm seems like a outdated tradition there in South Carolina. But in 4 career starts for Luke Doty, the Gamecocks have averaged just 14.25 points. That won't be enough against a Kentucky team with Will Levis, who was 11th in the country in passing success. Kentucky has just turned the ball over an absolute ton, and you could look at that as a concern. But I almost look at that as a positive. They have their second worst turnover margin in the country at -6 and are still 3-0 with a conference win in the SEC. I expect the turnover luck to turn around today and for Kentucky to win this game and to cover a 4.5-point spread for 2 units. And my parlay, I already talked about all 3 games. Going a little with the what Ben Mintz calls a mincy bomb. Just a little bit of a long shot parlay here, plus 1,700, 2 games at 12 o'clock, 1 at 7 o'clock. I'm going with Notre Dame money line, Utah State money line, and Kentucky money line for 1 unit. And if that hits, that's a 17-unit hit right there. So 17-1 play there. It's worth a sprinkle. Why not? And then, I mean, what everyone's here for. I don't have a lot of analysis on these plays, but my MLB picks are red hot. And I'm not diving into the MLB stats like I was all summer when I was struggling. I'm kind of just going on gut with the MLB, and I'm following streaks. I'm following teams who have been good to me, which is it's the antithesis of how I usually bet with football, basketball. But the Cardinals have been so good to me. They've won 14 in a row. They've made me 45 units. I said earlier I was up. I forget what the number was. What's the number? 78 units. 45 of those units in September are on the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable what they've done for me and my bankroll. And John Lester has been a big part of that. John Lester has been fantastic his last couple times out for St. Louis. He's found the fountain of youth out there in Missouri. So I like the Cardinals a lot today. I sort of -150. They're not getting plus money anymore. When they were playing Milwaukee and those teams, they were getting plus money all week and sometimes plus 200, plus 190. They're back to -150, but out of loyalty, I'm betting them. I don't care what it is on the money line until they lose -150. I'll risk 1.5 units to win 1 unit. Why not? But my real baseball play of the day is the Yankees -100 at the Boston Red Sox. Nestor Cortez Jr. I'm a big fan of Nestor. This guy messes with his arm angle. He messes with his timing. And he's had a couple really good outings his last couple times out. He's one of the better starters that the Yankees have. He's got a 2.79 ERA. He's had some pretty decent success against Boston, or at least better success against Boston than Pivetta has had against the Yankees. So I'm going with the Yankees as the underdog here. They're actually up to plus 102. I got them at even at -100, empty, whatever you want to look at it. But I've got the Yankees at -100, plus 100 for 2 units. So let's read off those picks and get us out of here. Utah State plus 9.5 for 3 units. Utah State plus 290 on the money line for 2 units versus Boise State. Over 63.5 in Boise State, Utah State for 2 units. Mississippi State plus 3 versus LSU for 2 units. Mississippi State money line versus LSU for 2 units. And LSU team total under 29.5 for 1 unit. Notre Dame over 19.5 on the team total for 1 unit. Notre Dame plus 7 for 4 units at Wisconsin for my best bet of the day. Notre Dame on the money line plus 210 at Wisconsin for 2 units. And Kentucky -4.5 for 2 units at South Carolina at 7 o'clock. And my parlay is Notre Dame, Utah State, Kentucky money line parlay 17-1 plus 1,700 for 1 unit. And then my 2 MLB plays, the St. Louis Cardinals -150, 1.5 unit to win 1 unit at 220. And then at 410, I've got the Yankees -100 at the Red Sox to win 2 units. I'll tweet these plays out. Might have to be 2-3 tweets. It's a big card today. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part